the president knows how to make a deal better than anyone who has ever assumed the office of the American presidency. And in order to make a deal, you have to bring both sides to the table. And typically, when you make a good deal, both sides leave that table a little bit unhappy.
So it does look like there could be a deal, at least on minerals, that we've been hearing about happening. We've been getting a number of reports here throughout the day that Ukraine's cabinet's expected to recommend a U.S. deal for billions in Ukrainian minerals in exchange for aid. Right now, the president of Ukraine, President Zelenskyy, weighing limited options to keep the assistance flowing to his country, but he says he won't sign a deal that will take multiple generations to pay back. There's Zelenskyy. Let's talk about it with Dan Baer, former U.S. ambassador to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Welcome back, Dan. This deal, I'll put up on the tablet, kind of broadly what we think each side wants to see. The Trump side here on the minerals, 50-50 split, $500 billion from the quote-unquote mineral projects. What do you make of it? Does this make sense, this part of it, to you, or?
I mean, I think it's easy to get wrapped around the axle of the details that have been on the table, and there have been some numbers on the table that seem unrealistic, at least in the medium term. Mm-hmm. But I think, and you can look at the deal in several different ways. There have been people criticizing it because it feels extortionate. It's kind of nice little country you have there. Would be a shame if something happened to it.
Yeah. But what did you think was unrealistic, though?
I mean, I guess from the Ukrainian perspective, the idea that $500 billion is going to materialize anytime soon, that would be a high-class problem for Ukraine to have, and that's a bridge that they can cross when they come to it. A lot of the mineral deposits in Ukraine are in places that are currently occupied by the Russian Federation, and so in that sense, having the U.S. have an interest in seeing those territories liberated is not a bad thing, and it does give the U.S. so-called skin in the game if there are U.S. interests there. I think it's really important for people to pay attention to the details of the deal because it has been criticized for being neo-colonial. It's mercantilist. It's unclear whether, it doesn't seem clear that the public interest will be represented in this deal. That is to say that American citizens will have an interest. It sounds right now from the news coming out that it will be largely private entities, and it would be important to know which private entities stand to benefit from a deal like that.
Full disclosure on things like that. So, that's a couple of interesting points, especially the fact that $500 billion would be a high-class problem. Another screen on the tablet I talked about yesterday about how, and the point, rather than just reading through all the rare earth minerals, lithium, graphite, down the list, titanium, that I was trying to make with this was the last column, China, and how there's been this argument made, I don't know if you think it's a legitimate argument or not, but that this deal, but again, if it's not all it's cracked up to be, as you suggest, maybe not, would be some way to counter China, make us less reliant on the Chinese.
It should absolutely be a priority on both sides of the aisle for all Americans to secure the supply chains that we need in order to have clean energy in the future. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely the case that batteries, the current battery technology requires many of these rare earths as well as other clean energy technologies. And so it's a good foreign policy priority for the Trump administration to pursue diversifying our reliance on China and trying to get other places where we can get the materials we need in order to fuel a clean energy revolution. So I fully support that objective. And this will make some incremental progress towards it if it does produce a new or an increased source of some of those raw materials.
Okay, bigger picture in terms of whether we'll get a peace deal in Ukraine. Your thoughts on what we saw yesterday with the president of France and how Macron handled things back and forth with Trump, because he's going to have Keir Starmer in, the new UK Prime Minister, on Thursday. Here's what Starmer said ahead of that visit. Listen.
This government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
So he's trying to make a point there, Dan, that, hey, we're going to do our part.
Absolutely. And really the deal that was available and still could be available to the Trump administration is a deal that includes the Europeans, not just the UK, but other Europeans committing to spend more on defense over the coming years, as well as the other part of it being that the United States will not precipitously leave Europe alone. The Europeans do not have the kind of defense industrial base that they need in order to step up fully, and it will take them time to build that out. They can build that out with partnerships with American companies. That can be good for both sides. So, I expect to hear more Europeans saying we're gonna step up, we're gonna take responsibility more for our own security in the coming years, and the United States needs to be a partner to them because we have an interest in Europe being secure. We have an interest in Europe being prosperous.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.